This tutorial will walk you through basic setup and navigation of PowerTeacher Gradebook. Gradebook is accessed from your PowerTeacher start page. So if you're on the board website and launch PowerTeacher and you're at the start page, you'll see a link to launch the Gradebook application. When you click on it, depending on your computer, different things might happen. You might get a message asking you to run a JavaScript, and that's okay. Um, on this computer, when I click on this link, my computer downloads the launch file and then I have to run it separately. So it might look different depending on your computer, but this is definitely the link you want to use. And if you're asked whether or not you'd like to run a program, the answer should be yes. Once you get into Gradebook, this is what the sort of home page looks like. So the information that you're looking at will appear on this main window. Okay, so at this point we're looking at assignments. I don't have any assignments yet, but my list of students is here. I've blurred out the names, so I've kept this nice and narrow so I don't have to worry about that too much. Final grades will appear here in this view. But the most important thing is to know what class we're looking at. So at the very start, you want to, at this top menu, make sure that you've selected the correct semester. Okay, so these are organized by years, 2014, 2015. I've selected semester 2, and that's where I am. We can look back at semester 1 if we wish, and I'm just going to stick with this fresh semester 2 class that hasn't been touched yet. You can toggle between your different sections using this list up here in the top left corner. So you can see that the student list is changing down below when I do that. Down here, I can use this arrow to expand this active students list. Okay, so I'll get a list of names down here. If I click on a student name, then that student name is highlighted up here on the main part of the page because that's what the selection is here. I've got highlight selected chosen in this menu. If I choose filter selected, then the student's name that I have selected in the left-hand menu is the only one that will appear up here. We're filtering the whole list to only include that single student. So I'm going to leave it as highlight selected so we can see everyone. And if you click on active, it will highlight everyone in your class, and you are also able to see students who have dropped. Okay, if we think about setting up a class, probably the most important thing is to begin with the end in mind. So you want to think about what your assessment should look like for your course, how you'd like to organize the assignments when you do your grade calculations, keeping in mind that the information, the numeric grades that you enter into Gradebook might not be the whole picture. So the first thing I would do is go to grade setup. And so we have some choices here. We've got a midterm calculation that we can do, and we've also got an end of semester calculation. That's what the M2 and S2 designation means. So if we look at semester 2, we have 3 choices for how to calculate a final grade. One is total points, and that's where each individual assignment for the entire semester is assigned a weight, and that weight is based on what the assignment is out of. So the number of marks the assignment is out of will determine the weight. That can be a little bit iffy because sometimes you might have a quiz that you mark out of 30, and you might also have a test that you mark out of 30, and under this system, those two would be weighted the same. Term and standard weights, if we look at what we've got here for choices for adding standards, what we've got here are the learning skills. Okay, so we might take a look at this later on if we're just talking about learning skills, but what we really want to focus on, I think probably the best way to set this up is by category weights. And the default categories, all of the categories available to us appear in the bottom left-hand corner. And the defaults for the program are things like test, quiz, project, homework, and so on. But probably we want to include more categories or different categories than that, because those may not give us good information about student learning. So a lot of people in SCDSB have been organizing their mark books using the achievement categories. So that's one choice. And in some cases, in other cases, depending on your course, you might want to set up your gradebook by strand. So for instance, if you're teaching science, it might be more useful for you to know the students' relative marks in different curriculum areas, so maybe chemistry versus biology, than it would be to have things separated by achievement category. Knowing that if you do set things up by strand or unit, then you still want to make sure you somehow designate which categories on the achievement chart are being covered or encompassed by each assignment. Okay, so if we take a look at category weights, right now I've got nothing here. I can add whichever categories I want. So I'm going to choose the achievement chart categories, and I'm also going to include the culminating activities. So that would include the final exam. And we can set this all up right from the beginning. So just to make the math simple, so that the example is understandable by everyone, if I weight the culminating activities as being worth 30% of the entire weight. And if I weight the 4 categories evenly, that's 70% divided by 4, so 17.5. And we can see here, because the weights I typed in all add to 100, they're equivalent to the percent that's shown here. You also have an option here to indicate how many low marks you would like to drop in each category, and that would be something you would want to use your professional judgment about, whether or not you use that. We also have options to individualize things student by student, so we can take a look at that when we look at adding assignments and grades for assignments. So I think I'm pretty happy with these weights. The save button in the bottom right hand corner is important to save those settings. All right. And then just in case you're wondering why the midterm grade is here, when you're doing your midterm reports, if I think about my midterm reports, usually if we're talking about achievement category, I would be including all of them. But I wouldn't have a culminating activity yet because those occur near the end of the course. And we can also add individual assignments here. So you could add individual assignments if you had assignments. So you can decide which items or categories you'd like to include in your midterm grade. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to stick with the final grade calculation. So a semester 2 grade calculation. If there's another category you'd like to have here, and I do have a couple more that I would like to add, down here in the lower left we can add an entirely new category, and I want to show you what that looks like because there are some settings that we want to make sure that we get right. So I'm going to put in here a category for observations because there are times I know in my classroom where I'm observing things that students are doing and I make notes on it, and we actually have the opportunity in Gradebook to do some note-taking about how students are doing on a certain task without putting a number grade. And I'll be able to show that to you in a future tutorial. So I might call this OBS, and I'm going to give it a different color from the other things. Maybe I'll choose black. I can see my other ones over here. This part here, it says any of the options in this middle section will be applied as defaults to any new assignment. So if I created a new assignment under the category observations, it would automatically be worth 10 points and it would definitely be included in the final grade. So I'm going to actually change this to letter grade because I don't want this to be a mark out of 10. I want to be able to leave some sort of descriptive letter grade. So for observations, you might consider something based on competency. So maybe a student is a novice, or they're proficient, or they're an expert. And in a later tutorial, I'll show you how you can set up codes for those things if you're interested. And for now, I'm going to say I don't want the observations to be included in the final grade, as that I want that to be the default. It can be changed later, but just as a default, I'm going to uncheck that box. The assignment being published means that the student will be aware that the assignment is there and has a due date. Sorry, I can choose when the assignment is published or made visible to the student based on when the due date is, or I can choose a specific date. So I can say make it visible to the student 5 days before the due date, or make it visible to the student on February 17th, whatever I wish. Also here, and this will, I know some people have had some questions about this, if this box is checked, then that means once you've entered the scores, they will be published and the student will be able to see them. So if you'd rather not have the student see their mark immediately online, we can uncheck that box, and then you don't have to worry about the scores being published right away. We also have the opportunity to add a description, and so you might want to add a description depending on what the category is. All right, so I'm going to add that category here. And I'm not going to give it a weight right now. I'm going to leave it as a 0, but I have the option to change that. I just want to make sure we can look at some different ways of collecting different types of assessments. Okay, so I think that's all that I want to talk about regarding setting up categories. And the next tutorial will cover adding new assignments in each category and what the settings are for those. Let's say yes here. Okay, so stay tuned for more.